Verago, still brimming with the desire to crush him, faced him, and Choi Yeonseung had to calculate every move very carefully at this moment. Even though the divine celestial body had trained the ki within it, tearing through the defenses, he was in a situation where he couldn't land because his internal strength was running out. Time did not allow him to make even the slightest mistake. Although the three converging flowers and innate martial skill helped him protect his internal strength, he still needed time to use the divine punch again. Choi Yeonseung was quite slow, and he had several thoughts continuously. The difficulty was his next action, but there wasn't enough time for Verago to cover his shield, of course. Waiting too long, Verago had grown impatient and shouted, "Human, we've prolonged this battle too long. We can't use the Lord of Blood and Brawls any longer. His weapon has been recharged and needs someone's blood right now. Finish it." Verago's eyes bulged with an eerie light without pupils, his fierce face and sharp teeth. He thought he was terrifying enough to make Choi Yeonseung retreat. Dear Lord of Blood and Brawls, but he didn't expect that only fueled the fighting energy within him. The Lord of Blood and Brawls had given him the power to win. The desire to kill him was not just Verago's, his demonic scythe was eager to pierce deep into the beating heart and drink until Choi Yeonseung's body rotted away. The light from the scythe called for urgency so intense that Verago anxiously called out to his deity, "My lord." "Thank you." The sky changed color, the waves roared, and tornadoes gradually gathered as if admiring a spectacular performance. At that moment, Choi Yeonseung realized he was in danger. In the blink of an eye, everything changed abruptly, and Verago disappeared before he could do anything. The reason was that the demon abandoned its large form and became smaller. Verago, like a serpent made of translucent fabric, slithered towards Choi Yeonseung and became faster. But Choi did not allow it to come within a dangerous range. He slowly deployed his internal energy outward, and Verago, by reflex, dodged Choi's energy threads, protecting himself from Verago's sudden attack. With quick thinking, he filled the gaps while Verago was distracted by some parts of himself. The invulnerable body was rendered ineffective, giving him time to defend himself. At this point, Choi Yeonseung was slightly exhausted, using his left arm to grasp his right elbow. If he lost focus, he would die. It was going to be a tough fight, and he could not afford any mistakes from now on. Verago's aggression only increased and showed no sign of relenting. He felt he had been too lenient with Choi. Since Choi appeared in the abyss, he had never exhausted his internal energy. The abyss, where one never knows when their enemy might appear. Running out of internal power in such a place is no different from walking into a dead end. With a powerful leap, even from a distance away from Choi Yeonseung, Verago saw no obstacle, as he had always been killing people. He had never given up before his hands were covered in blood. Choi Yeonseung continued to use his internal power, but this time he was much calmer and more insightful. Death was very easy, but now, he faced a choice between expending energy to fight or giving up. He was still unshaken by Verago's aggressive actions. What would happen next was truly unpredictable. Verago was very close to Choi Yeonseung. Not thinking about the next development, once again, Verago's face bore the mark of hell as he sought to quench his thirst for blood. Choi Yeonseung drained all the internal energy he had, in a posture as if delivering a powerful blow. But this blow from Choi Yeonseung was fast, strong, and inflicted significant damage on Verago, awakening the Divine Chain skill. With more phrases being added to the Divine Realm skill, the Divine Realm skill was upgraded, and Choi Yeonseung resiliently received the rewards he rightfully deserved. There was blood, but it was not Choi Yeonseung's, but Verago's. He laughed with a sense of cowardice and bitterness at his miserable state. Choi Yeonseung, slightly humbled in his less exalted posture, was a severe blow to Verago, who was heavily attacked both mentally and physically. Verago had a premonition that, no matter what happened, he needed to escape from humanity immediately. Once again, raising his weapon high, Verago was certain that if he could not end Choi Yeonseung here, he would be in trouble. And with Choi Yeonseung's current power and his future, he was an enemy that Verago could not approach. Staring at Choi Yeonseung, Verago did not want to admit, but had to acknowledge that this was how Choi would become powerful. Verago could not leave the events happening in the Lord of Blood and Brawls. In such territory, Verago stood up again with the most righteous faith of his life. He surrounded Choi Yeonseung with blood ice walls he created, not allowing a new constellation to be born on his master's great territory. Yet, the prison he had created soon felt threatened by Choi Yeonseung's power and retreated in fear. This morning, what is this? Verago horrifiedly realized that Choi Yeonseung seemed to have become a giant. After depleting his internal power, he finally saw it. Verago gaped, unsure whether Choi had grown or if he himself had shrunk. I finally see what holds me back, the light created by Choi Yeonseung, the power and will he generated himself. No matter how much internal energy I have, such things no longer matter. The internal energy is the universe within me. Choi Yeonseung gradually felt the torrents of power flooding every corner of his body. He felt so strong he could devour the entire galaxy. If I expanded that world outward, it would soon become just like my internal energy. The system notification. You have completed the S-rank skill awakening, and the skill reinforced key. You can now use reinforced key at will. The notifications bring good news. You have achieved S-rank in suppression of the strong to help the weak and S-rank in self-conquest skills. The white light gradually dominated, forcefully suppressing Verago's blood-red encirclement. Throwing off the things from hell, Choi Yeonseung forcefully shattered Verago's evil belief, making way for the pure and majestic light to exist, resonating with the universe becoming stronger. The universe awaits you to shout. Immediately, a series of words appeared. The constellations are witnessing your favorite battle. The constellations observing the intense battle between you and Verago continually exclaimed. The lava and magma lynx waved its front paws to greet you, greeting the fiery plague and dark night, promising you a scythe, while the golden fish stomped the world below you. The Lord of Blood and Wars was boiling with rage. Seeing this, Choi Yeonseung frowned and said, everyone was observing this battle. Just as he was about to punch again, Verago, unable to endure any longer, raised his hand and, trembling slightly, spoke to him. I concede, human, he said, looking up at the countless twinkling stars. Choi Yeonseung unconsciously looked up at the sky. Finally, the battle reached its conclusion, and a system message appeared, stating that you had won, in the battle against the renowned Verago, the guardian of the Blood Axe. You received energy from the cosmos, influenced by your combat skills. Before disappearing, Verago told you, human, you have the right to refuse my master's offer. Choi Yeonseung hurriedly thanked Verago and said, I truly mean it. Verago continued, listen, human, I don't know which constellation suggested that you do this, but I do know this. You don't have to accept the request of any constellation, be stronger. Strong enough that no constellation will dare to underestimate you anymore. Carve your name into the history of this abyss, and I say, become a constellation yourself, human. Hearing this, you looked slightly stunned. Become a constellation, huh? Then he frowned, his eyes resolute, and replied, all right. I will keep in mind what you said today. Impressive, human. My name is Choi Yeonseung. Hearing this, he said, I look forward to the day we duel. Verago's words made Choi Yeonseung a bit uneasy. Verago, make sure you come back, after all, I still owe you. When he completely disappeared, Choi Yeonseung still kept his words in mind. He muttered, become a constellation, huh? The highest peak where one can embody their own world. Once reaching that level, Choi Yeonseung began to feel something he had never experienced before. Including the pressure from the gazes of the constellations watching him. And from the growth of those constellations. Choi Yeonseung thought to himself, I can get there too, if I could just be a bit stronger. The constellations still observed Choi Yeonseung. The lynx of lava and magma requested to meet you, huh? The red cardinal of plague and darkness requested to meet you. These abyss constellations still haven't made a move. Rather, they can't, in a situation where the abyss constellations continuously try to invade the territory of other constellations. Leaving their own territory could lead to the near-complete collapse of an entire kingdom. So the constellations watched the world from their thrones, keeping an eye on their citizens, as well as potential candidates. The way they watched was like live streaming on the internet. The Lord of Blood and Wars had placed a bounty on your head. And all creatures from that territory started targeting you. Choi Yeonseung smirked and said, I started seeing them as commenters on internet forums. These constellations aren't special at all. Not anymore. Just thinking about it could drive you mad. but Choi Yeonseung was already mad. He declared in front of the constellations that he would become a constellation himself. At this moment, Choi Yeonseung had nothing to lose. Back on Earth, at the time when he and his two friends were sitting in a room watching TV, the captain exclaimed, "Oh, Choi Yeonseung, there he is, on TV." Choi Yeonseung was lifting weights and turned to look. "Who?" "The one who signed a contract with the constellations before," the host asked, and Hunter Lee Shawn began to answer. "Everyone wants to sign a contract with the constellations, so they envy me, but it's not as good as people think. If you make a deal with the constellations, you will understand what I'm saying," Choi Yeonseung's captain angrily said. "That bastard doesn't know what he's talking about. Your life is restricted by the laws of the constellations, managed and watched over every move. It's not wonderful at all," another friend angrily said. "The luckiest ones always complain the most. Handsome, with a contract with the constellations, people just wish for that. What are you complaining about?" "Exactly, that shameless guy." Now Choi Yeonseung understood what the hunter meant. Living by the rules of the constellations, being watched by the constellations all the time, and having to endure unimaginable punishments from challenges, the status of a constellation citizen, the position everyone envied. For the glory of the master, the Lord of Blood and Wars is watching, simply slaves with flashy fame. Now facing Choi Yeonseung were countless demons rushing towards him. He casually used his strength to destroy them all without hesitation. "The reason I want to be stronger isn't to be like you, but to have the right to decide my own life. Verago was right. Can't put my fate in the hands of the constellations anymore." The constellations stirred. The Cardinal of Plague and Darkness mocked the Lord of Blood and Wars. The cat of lava and magma raised its leg higher, laughing joyfully. "Hello, Cardinal of Plague and Darkness, for your kindness." Seeing this, Choi Yeonseung pretended to be extremely annoyed. He sighed. "So annoying, the Cardinal of Plague and Darkness offered you the skill to unleash a plague." Seeing the constellations trying to entice him, Choi Yeonseung refused immediately. "The Cardinal of Plague and Darkness was furious at your rejection." Another constellation laughed at the Cardinal of Plague and Darkness. "Even if I said, I don't know how to use magic or I refuse, the constellations wouldn't stop. The Cardinal of Plague and Darkness had a fever, see?" The Cardinal of Plague and Darkness tried to justify. "The cat of lava and magma advised you to learn magic. It gifted you the magic book, Cat's Book." Choi Yeonseung frowned and said, "No need, I will just train my martial arts." Seeing the cat of lava and magma cursing him, calling him a weirdo, he was speechless. "Why am I a weirdo?" "The cat of lava and magma gifted you, the weirdo, a gold bar made of adamantium." Indeed, this attracted Choi Yeonseung's attention. The Cardinal of Plague and Darkness mocked, laughing at the cat of lava and magma, thinking you wouldn't accept such things. But upon seeing the gold bar, Choi Yeonseung accepted it immediately, happily saying, "I agree, thank you." Choi Yeonseung is a power-obsessed madman, but he's a madman from a capitalist society. Cat of lava and magma tells you to make a contract if you want more types of gemstones. He pondered, I will. Then decisively said, "I will become a constellation myself. Tempting me with these gifts won't work." Hearing this, Cat of lava and magma could only shake its head, saying that's why you can't negotiate with eccentrics. After almost a year of battle, the surroundings became devastated, and Choi Yeonseung's demon inn was no exception. He stepped into the inn and said, "Strange, where did it learn words like those eccentrics? They said the world would translate it or they used those words in the world of the Lynx constellation. What kind of place is that?" Messages from the stars arrived. "Cat of lava and magma is cheering you on." Choi Yeonseung nonchalantly opened the door and stepped into the house saying, "My God, of course, the warehouse had to be destroyed after all." Another message came. It said it would see if you could become a star. Cardinal of Plague and Darkness despised you for not knowing your location. After rummaging around, he finally found his beloved pot. "Ah, here it is." He calmly tied it up while humming. Choi Yeonseung didn't bother reading messages from the stars anymore. He didn't care about the jokes or teasing from the stars anymore. They had their own path. He carried the pot and left. Looking back at the inn, he said, "Monster Inn, thanks for everything, goodbye." Over here. The angel Adak Kanyul was sent by Libra to search for Choi Yeonseung everywhere. He saw the two-headed wild wolf in the wild wolf den and asked, Have you ever had the chance to meet a human? He began to describe, he's about this tall, and has a face like this. The stars are looking for him. The monster smirked, are you speaking too arrogantly? Hey, why should I tell an angel like you such things? Suddenly, other wild wolves appeared from the ground and pounced, saying, it seems the little cute angel forgot, after hiding behind your star, but do you even know where this is? They yelled, this place doesn't belong to the stars, the most isolated place in the abyss, the land of freedom. They pounced, showing their claws threateningly, taste the claws of freedom. The angel gently sent the wild wolf flying with a tooth-breaking blow, straight into the ground. The angel asked, have you ever seen him? The two-headed wolf obediently said, no, I haven't seen him, sorry sir, I was jealous because it seems you signed a contract with a star. The angel Adokkanyeol flew away after receiving the information. Thank you for the information. May you all receive the blessings of the stars, the angel of the goddess of balance for the future. Adokkanyeol was still scouring the abyss, talking to the speaking creatures, and defeating the monsters that couldn't be questioned if they had seen Choi Yeonseung. The observer with 100 faces asked how you were doing. The evil god of sinister flames promised you a reward for an answer. Master of twisted hallucinations tried to figure out the goddess's purpose. The stars were curious about the unusual movements of a servant. Just like humans giving gifts to streamers, the stars could also gift servants. For the stars who must stay within their territory, a servant's journey provided great entertainment. The angel Adokkanyeol used the skill, goddess's barrier. You were no longer exposed to the stars. The observer with 100 faces was furious at the audacious skill. Master of twisted hallucinations scorned the goddess's behavior. The evil god of sinister flames deceitfully promised the skill, hellfire, asking to lower the barrier. The observer with 100 faces wanted the inside of the barrier to be visible only to him in exchange. Why? Why did the goddess of balance send Adokkanyeol on a mission without any guarantee? It was because he was meant to complete the task, ignoring the temptations of the stars, even though he thought he couldn't. Now, back to a forgotten place in the territory of the Lord of Blood and Wars. Choi Yeonseung was still training very hard. His supreme technique had reached the highest level and had become a great star. Internal energy no longer mattered, the perfect state skill even allowed him to command other martial artists. Even so, today, Choi Yeonseung was still using the heavenly punch as usual. Training diligently like the first time he learned the supreme technique. You have chosen a useful life true to your identity, your survival strength is increasing. When he killed Verago and decided to leave the Lord of Blood and Wars' territory, Choi Yeonseung held the glowing card and said, the skill has been verified, there has been a major change from the unidentified skill, World Resonance. World Resonance, the undefeated embodiment of training, you are reaching the peak of yourself and the world is resonating. Your title is the undefeated embodiment of training, the system provided the information. Choi Yeonseung knew that when he reached the highest level with his celestial technique, he had reached the pinnacle through martial arts, a perfect state, so how did he become stronger and become a star? He thought, I feel like I know how, after mastering the celestial technique and reaching the highest level, it feels like the world is whispering to me. The monsters saw Choi Yeonseung and pointed at each other, saying, it's him. They rushed forward, shouting, this is the territory of the Lord of Blood and Wars, do you think you can escape? We will return the shame you brought upon his name. Choi Yeonseung was still deep in thought. Raising your value and presence, the world is telling me that's how to become a star. And the value I need to pursue is, without interrupting his thoughts, Choi Yeonseung dispatched the monsters with one hand, cleaning them up completely. I have to train and fight continuously, but I cannot lose a single battle, that's what I want. The monsters lay scattered on the ground, while Choi Yeonseung leisurely walked away as if nothing had happened. One monster said, I figured it out, he defeated the first servant, Verago, are we just dust compared to him? Yes, the other monster replied. And so, Choi Yeonseung trained in the abyss where the stars could not find him. Choi Yeonseung said, I am truly getting stronger, the power of survival. More than the resonant technique from the world that he gained from the battle with Verago, he also acquired two other skills related to survival power. Defeating the strong, supporting the weak. S-rank eliminates the strong and helps the weak. Fighting strong enemies increases your presence power. Self-conquering S rank, the one who defeats themselves is the strongest. Your presence power increases when you live a useful life true to your identity. A self-conqueror shows the stars how to live, a species that creates laws and is the law itself, a star. What if the cardinal of plague and darkness used healing power? What if the lord of blood and wars spoke of peace? Then their presence power would increase, and they would weaken like the stars. Choi Yeonseung looked at the stars and said, "To use this technique, I have to fight stronger enemies, but I can't lose a single battle? I like it because dreaming is not easy, just try." Suddenly something fell. Choi Yeonseung looked and said, "Is that another monster? I feel like it's something very huge, hope it's stronger than me." Rising from the ground, the monster surged and roared. Choi Yeonseung looked at it in surprise and said, "Huh? Is it you, Onyx?" The stone serpent Onyx roared. Choi Yeonseung shouted, "Onyx." He ran over and hugged its nose, saying, "Wow, you've grown so much." Suddenly, the ground shook, and Choi Yeonseung looked up in confusion. Behind Onyx were 5 more stone serpents. Choi Yeonseung asked, "Family? Are they your wife and kids?" Onyx made a sound of agreement, and Choi Yeonseung exclaimed, "Congratulations." But the stone serpent looked sad, making a mournful sound as if to warn Choi Yeonseung. Choi Yeonseung asked, "Huh? Am I in danger? Run now." Suddenly, the ground split in two, creating a deep chasm. The stone serpent and its family, whom Choi Yeonseung hadn't seen in a long time, were colossal creatures as long as a city when fully stretched out. But what had just appeared was an entirely new level. An extraordinarily large monster barely emerged from the ground. If it fully surfaced, it would immediately be considered an above S-class threat, potentially putting the entire world on high alert. Choi Yeonseung looked at the newly appeared giant monster and said, "The magical power is making me shiver. This one's strength is definitely above Verago." Choi Yeonseung wondered, is this power from a celestial being? No, I guess he hasn't reached that level yet. The system notified, "You have discovered Hydra, the 9-headed serpent." To Choi Yeonseung, attention from celestial beings was quite bothersome. Some had cheered for him, who had decided to follow the path of a celestial being. However, most looked down on him, and some even showed hostility towards him. Especially in the case of the Lord of Blood and Wars, whose first servant was defeated in his own territory. To them, Choi Yeonseung was a beast yet to fully develop, which is why they tried to use anything necessary to disrupt his training to become a celestial being. Therefore, Choi Yeonseung had come to the neutral zone of the abyss, escaping the eyes of the celestial beings. After all, only strength rules in a lawless land. It was a place governed by monsters with power equal to celestial beings, but not bound by any rules. Unlike celestial beings, the 9-headed monster exuded immense power. Onyx let out a fearful cry. Choi Yeonseung said, "Such extraordinary magical power. He must be forsaking precision and only using brute force to overpower." The system informed, "The skill to defeat the strong and assist the weak is activated. If you defeat Hydra, your power will increase. The self-conquering skill is activated. If you confront Hydra, your survival strength will increase. The universal resonance skill, invincible embodiment of training, is resonating. You are the invincible embodiment of training. Live a life fitting your existence." Hydra roared at Choi Yeonseung. He frowned and said, "My skill demands that I fight this thing, although my choice would remain unchanged even without that demand." He stood up and leapt to fight. Onyx called out worriedly, meaning it's very dangerous. Choi Yeonseung yelled fiercely, "Let's do it, you damn snake." Onyx looked dumbfounded at Choi Yeonseung. Then Choi Yeonseung realized, "Oh right, you're a snake too." Choi Yeonseung stood pointing at Hydra and shouted, "You've messed with my friend and his family. No matter how strong you are, I'll make you regret your actions." The snake yelled, understanding clearly, "Die, you lowly creature," and roared angrily. Choi Yeonseung looked at it and said, "Telepathy." The 9 heads continuously screamed, "You lowly insect, I'll crush you. My poison can defeat even celestial beings. My breath can burn you. Die, die." Choi Yeonseung stood there looking at Hydra. The killing intent emanating from the 9 heads paralyzed most opponents with fear and telepathy, but still. Choi Yeonseung was already used to this kind of killing intent, having gone through countless battles with it in the Lord of Blood and Wars territory. Without hesitation, Choi Yeonseung attacked one of Hydra's heads. The head quickly severed, making Onyx's family gape in amazement. The remaining 8 heads surrounded and telepathically expressed their anger. A lowly being like you dared to do this. Thanks to Hydra's skill of immortal regeneration, its head was regenerating. The monster said, I commend you for severing my head, however, you will pay for hurting my body. The monster gathered all its poison in its throat and screamed, no stellar warrior has ever withstood my poison. Choi Yeonseung thought to himself, he's telling me about his next move through telepathy, but why? It's because he can. He is the ruler of this territory, one that even a constellation cannot touch. Even if he announced his next move, what could a lowly being do about it? Hydra, the 9-headed serpent, is declaring the fate of its lowly opponent. And its opponent can only accept this fate, as all 9 heads spew a toxic substance toward Choi Yeonseung. Within the smoke, a blue light emerged. Choi Yeonseung rose within a protective light. The monster angrily said, how can you withstand my poison? Choi Yeonseung replied, my head feels like it's about to explode from hearing all your telepathic screams. I would have been hurt a bit if not for my poison immunity. Choi Yeonseung looked at his hands as he spoke, and the monster cursed, you wretched lowly being, how dare you? With a glowing hand, Choi Yeonseung said, but something's different from when I fought Verago. This power doesn't just come from celestial techniques and energy reinforcement, it feels like. Hydra roared as if to swallow Choi Yeonseung whole. He then flew forward and punched Hydra's head. His desire to blow it away was being realized. Cosmic resonance incarnates invincibility. Your survival strength is increasing. Choi Yeonseung kicked at Hydra's neck and head, saying, this must be what's written in the skill description, the effect of survival strength. Choi Yeonseung continuously attacked the monster, its head gradually severing from its neck. Choi Yeonseung thought, I won't lose in this battle. No, I could totally smash him in one blow, but I can't end the fight. The monster's head gradually regenerated as if nothing had happened. It roared and prepared its poison to shoot out. Choi Yeonseung looked and said, I guess he regenerates faster. Hydra said, die, you useless thorn, and it spewed poison directly at Choi Yeonseung. Choi Yeonseung thought, this breath is dangerous, even with my invincible body skill blocking all attacks, it's not enough to defend against Verago's massive magical energy. And Hydra has completely surpassed Verago. I can't rely on my invincible body to withstand it anymore. I can move with divine steps. I'll regulate my breathing and charge at him, moving even faster. Faster than this, just a bit faster, and I can. Choi Yeonseung used divine steps to glide over Hydra's breath. Choi Yeonseung had sped up, moving through the safe spots, and that's when it happened. The speed at which Hydra breathed fire and poison slowed down, as if time was slowing, as if responding to Choi Yeonseung's call for himself to move faster. There was no way for Hydra to fully control its breath. And Choi Yeonseung didn't possess any skill that could do this. The monster continuously spewed poison, cursing, die, die, just die. Choi Yeonseung accelerated, attacking to escape the breaths, stomping on each head. He landed and said, I understand now. It's the same force behind the absurd power that martial arts and techniques can't explain, I've got it. This power doesn't just enhance martial arts or magical abilities, but it changes reality to match my desires and vision. He had learned how to use existential power. His existential power could alter reality. He could modify reality as he wished. His enlightenment granted him the skill of existential power. Existential power, a power that allows the bearer to reach their pinnacle, is the power that enables constellations to set the rules of the abyss. Constellations use this power to transform parts of the abyss into their kingdoms, bestowing blessings and power upon their subjects. As long as there is enough existential power, a constellation can do anything it wants. The Hydra couldn't defeat Choi Yeonseung and got angry. How dare you? You're a thorn in my side. I won't forgive you. I'll kill you at any cost. I must kill you. I will crush you into dust and tear you apart limb by limb. It stepped forward. Sharp claws aimed at Choi Yeonseung to attack. Choi Yeonseung took a breath, and so did the Hydras, as a great soul with a strong will. The amount of existential power Choi Yeonseung could wield was not enough to bend the Hydra's will to his command. But was it necessary? The target of his existential power wasn't the Hydra. It was himself. Choi Yeonseung clenched his fist and flew towards the monster, fortifying his ki, infusing it with his existential power. Becoming a blade that could cut through the tough scales of the Hydra. And a solution for the skill of immortal regeneration. The monster's severed head screamed, "Grua, impossible." Choi Yeonseung reminded himself, "Don't be careless, this is part of the training." Choi Yeonseung continued to cut off the remaining heads, making the monster groan. "No way, impossible, I can't regenerate, how could a tiny mouse do this to us?" They told each other, "Run now, we'll hide in the cave until we can regenerate normally." Only 2 heads were left, arguing, "Hide? Me? Yeah right, shut up, I won't humiliate myself like that." They cursed at each other, "Damn it, you idiot, not even fire or poison can fight it, if we can't regenerate, we're dead." The head felt humiliated, "Never, in the 10,000 years I've lived till now." Choi Yeonseung, like a sharp blade, descended from above, splitting the Hydra's body in 2, defeating it. Choi Yeonseung had done it. Green smoke rose around him from the monster. He breathed heavily and said, "This was a good fight." Because of self-conquest, his existential power increased. Because of suppressing the strong and helping the weak, his existential power increased. The universe was increasingly resonating with him, the world or the universe. He could contain a large amount of Hydra blood. He achieved a plus rank skill of immortal regeneration. Choi Yeonseung defeated the monster. The system notified, "You have acquired immortal regeneration. Your immortal body will continuously regenerate." Choi Yeonseung stood before the severed neck, looking at the card in his hand and said, "I guess you never know what the hell will happen in life. I always thought these skills wouldn't affect me, but now I've scooped up all these skills. One of these skills will get me on the hunter ranking board on Earth." The onyx snake family came crawling to inquire. Choi Yeonseung turned and asked in surprise, "Oh, you're still alive?" He asked the snake, "Do I look different than before?" The snake also responded with a few words. Choi Yeonseung continued, "Yeah, it's understandable, it's been 1,000 years after all. You look different too, you've even got a family now." Choi Yeonseung stood with hands on hips, looking at the 9-headed Hydra monster and said, "I was planning to cut this thing up. Do you need any more meat, skin, bones or anything?" Onyx looked at Choi Yeonseung, shaking in fear. The snake shuddered remembering Choi Yeonseung's actions from long ago. Poison oozed from the Hydra's corpse, separating the meat aside. Touching the head of the corpse was very dangerous. Without saying much, Choi Yeonseung swiftly cut up the Hydra. Onyx turned to tell its children, "Kids, don't look." Quickly, Choi Yeonseung had finished cutting up the snake. Separating the bones and meat, he carried the chunk of meat saying, "Phew, though it's cut up, it's too big to carry. I guess I'll eat all this here." Onyx called Choi Yeonseung with a necklace in its mouth. Choi Yeonseung asked, "You want me to take this?" "You don't have to," Onyx pleaded with Choi Yeonseung. He accepted. "This is a thank you gift for saving your family from that snake, huh? You have acquired a loot, a space pocket necklace." Choi Yeonseung wondered, a spatial pocket necklace? The necklace immediately lit up, opening up inside. It sucked all the Hydra's meat inside. Wow, can it really hold all of that? Snake bones, commonly listed materials for crafting rare weapons, skin, could be used as a material to enhance armor's toughness, if it can be processed. Choi Yeonseung lifted his beloved pot and said, "Perfect, just enough space for my pot and enough room to place the collected minerals." Looking at Onyx, he said, "I collected some adamantium since we last met, right? I still have the adamantium you gave me, but haven't figured out how to process it yet. If I can melt it down, I'll make a frying pan and a cutting board. Sounds pretty cool." Onyx patted Choi Yeonseung on the shoulder with his tail. He handed Choi Yeonseung a purple stone. "What? You want me to carry this too? Did you find it while chewing on rocks?" At the moment Choi Yeonseung decided to follow a constellation. He received messages from other constellations, gaining energy, like Verago or Hydra. He realized the necklace's purpose wasn't random, nor was it sudden wisdom or depth. Simply put, he reached the pinnacle of life, gaining existential strength. He could hear everything whispering in his ears. Orichalcum ore, a metal that produces a large amount of pure magic. Orichalcum ore is the sharpest metal, generating magic. Adamantium is the hardest metal, absorbing magic. Choi Yeonseung held both oars and said, I can use sharp orichalcum ore to make knives and scissors, and hard adamantium for frying pans and cutting boards, awesome. Onyx was busy explaining to his wife, he looks crazy, but he's actually a good guy. His wife asked skeptically, really? Still plenty of meat. Choi Yeonseung holding the necklace said, even containers can't have infinite capacity, huh? No way, then, I'll eat all of this. Onyx was shocked and tried to stop him. Choi Yeonseung laughed and said, don't worry. I'll share it with you, Onyx. Onyx immediately backed away 3 meters in fear. For thousands of years, he managed the demon inn, actively engaging in culinary research. Of course, his cooking skills weren't just decent, they were top-notch. But, this was a difficult ingredient. From someone who defied the constellations, a material he had never seen before, a warmaker and blood changer. Whoever eats the monster's meat will gain its immense power, but if they can't handle the poison, they will die instantly. Even so, Choi Yeonseung didn't hesitate. Handling a tough ingredient is also a form of training. After preparing, Choi Yeonseung invited Onyx, come on, have a bite, you'll get back your tough body like before. I mean you'll regain the stones you lost while taking care of your kids. If you don't like cooked meat, I've got raw meat for you, Onyx squealed, meaning he ate rocks. Choi Yeonseung replied, you need to eat meat to recover. His determination showed in his voice and actions. He was the one who defeated Hydra, also Onyx's benefactor, proving his strength. Choi Yeonseung kept saying, eat, eat. Onyx reluctantly bit into the meat Choi Yeonseung prepared. After eating, he breathed fire, calling his wife and kids to join. Choi Yeonseung laughed and said, tasty, right? I heard eating large snakes boosts vitality, I'm glad you like it. Onyx asked Choi Yeonseung. He replied, yeah, why doesn't Hydra's meat have toxins? I prepped it all. How could I let my friend and his family eat something poisonous? Choi Yeonseung said, like a chef of the abyss. He earned the respect and trust of the giant rock snake family. The number of people following you as a constellation increased. The power as a constellation, the existential strength increased. Choi Yeonseung's body glowed. This is, he thought. I can feel the power my legless friends are transmitting to my body. Finally, Choi Yeonseung understood why the constellations always wanted to increase their followers, and why they were so interested in Earth. A place brimming with billions of potential followers. A constellation only needed to touch Earth to gain enough existential power to change everything. Choi Yeonseung looked up at the sky and said, I have to find a way back to Earth before God's prophecy comes true. Choi Yeonseung sat there watching the stone snake devouring the Hydra meat he had prepared, and suddenly said, there's something off, isn't there? The stone snake had now grown several times larger than before, and Choi Yeonseung wondered why its body had swollen so much. Could it be because he fed it something unhealthy? I think there are some foods you shouldn't feed pets, like chocolate for dogs and onions for cats. He turned to look at the snake meat. Choi Yeonseung pondered deeply, is Hydra meat the same for a stone snake? Like it could damage its liver and, Onyx let out a worried sound, keying, meaning no, it couldn't. Choi Yeonseung turned to comfort his friend, alright, I get it, I won't throw them away, okay, eat up. Although spending time with friends was fun, Choi Yeonseung couldn't stay here. He couldn't halt his journey to become a constellation. This determination was why the goddess chose him. Choi Yeonseung stood before a cave entrance leading to a territory and said, so you mean there's something inside that territory? He carefully watched the stone snake drawing on the ground with its tail, and asked, what are you drawing? A demon? Onyx kept speaking in snake language, gru, pointing its tail at the demon's face. Choi Yeonseung tried to understand, it's very dangerous, especially the face. Onyx immediately nodded in agreement. Choi Yeonseung thought deeply, I don't understand what it's saying anymore. He flew up saying, a dangerous demon. Then Choi Yeonseung thought, would there be a dangerous demon for me now? I fought enough demons when I was sick in the territory of the Lord of Blood and Wars. He gradually realized, does it think there's another demon stronger than Verago and Hydra in that territory? He stepped into the territory saying, exciting. You have entered the territory of the constellation of dreams and greeds. Other constellations have recently started paying attention to you. The servants of the constellation of dreams and greeds are detecting and approaching you. Choi Yeonseung said, are they coming to meet me? They quickly flew to Choi Yeonseung asking, "Are you the undefeated embodiment of training?" Choi Yeonseung replied, "Yes." That god landed opposite Choi Yeonseung and said, "Welcome, Constellation." He folded his wings and continued, "Our master says she wants to meet you. The nightmare god is using soul enchantment, but the supreme technique's internal power is blocking it." Choi Yeonseung was confused. The nightmare god Incubus continued, "And we also believe that our mediocre abilities would be useless against you, great constellation." Choi Yeonseung responded, "I'm not a constellation yet, but..." Incubus said, "We believe you will become one soon." Choi Yeonseung thought, "This is the nicest thing I've heard in the abyss." Choi Yeonseung said, "What if I refuse to meet your master?" Incubus replied, "Our master said to let you go your way, but we swear on our master's honor, this will not negatively impact you." Choi Yeonseung frowned and thought, "What do they want?" Then he said, "All right, I'll meet them. I have always wanted to meet you." The constellation of dreams and greeds turned around with short hair, a pure white dress, looking like a child, turned to Choi Yeonseung. A voice echoed, "My slave is having a beautiful dream. It's the dream of eating your desire, as much as he likes after being accepted by you." Choi Yeonseung asked, "Constellation of dreams and greeds." Choi Yeonseung hurriedly asked loudly, "What else?" Han replied, "Sorry, I only heard it from a rumor, so that's all. My master might know about it. Are you interested in Earth?" Choi Yeonseung replied, "Yes." Incubus happily said, "I heard there are many souls there. If you could control it, it would be a great support for you." Choi Yeonseung said, "That's not what I intend to do." He asked, "Yes, so why are you?" Choi Yeonseung replied, "I'm planning to prevent other constellations from controlling Earth." The nightmare god was surprised. "Constellation, you are not only powerful but also highly insightful." Choi Yeonseung walked and thought, "They're called nightmares, but they seem to be kind and gentle demons. Although they can't control their enchantment skills, they don't seem like dangerous demons." Suddenly he was startled by a shout, "Desire, give me your desire." The nightmare god is using soul enchantment, supreme techniques are at play. That demon just screamed, it was blocked, still continuously yelling, "Let me out. I know you also want to eat it. Let's eat together, the innocent purity and sweet desire." The demon kept screaming towards Choi Yeonseung, the relentless desire for training and power. "I'm going crazy. Just one bite," another demon said. "Shut up, you will be sealed for 300 years. Then it was dragged away. Choi Yeonseung asked, "What was that?" The incubus replied, "We nightmares are really weak when we fall into desire." Choi Yeonseung asked, "Do you guys live off the desires of others?" The incubus immediately answered, "Yes." Choi Yeonseung said, "But perhaps I don't possess a desire you can eat. I am a person who doesn't need a lover, good food, or a comfortable bed." The incubus replied, "No, sir, your desire is." He turned to his longing face and said, "A pure and righteous desire for training, it's truly fragrant and sweet." Choi Yeonseung gradually backed away, looking at him. He immediately said, "But we're fine, we can control ourselves perfectly." Choi Yeonseung said, "Is that so?" He continued to explain, "I am a slave blessed by the master controller, so please trust me, please." He led Choi Yeonseung to the hall. "This is the residence of the constellation of dreams and greeds. If you enter, you can meet the master." Choi Yeonseung asked, "Aren't you coming in with me?" He immediately replied, "How can a humble species like me join your conversation?" Choi Yeonseung said, "I told you before, I am not yet a constellation. Since you have guided me, I will always go with you. Let's go." He emotionally said, "Sir Constellation. This is the first time someone has thought of me like that." Look, according to his thoughts, maybe, just maybe, but if everything fails, should I use him as a shield? Because it's a disgrace to lose a beloved servant. Then they would definitely be able to use the power better than me, because this is their territory, if I have to face the enemy. Whatever happens, it's not too strange, even if he got the invitation. Choi Yeonseung couldn't shake off this feeling of worry. The title of the undefeated embodiment of training is not given to everyone. The door opened. The two entered. The incubus immediately fell asleep. Choi Yeonseung turned and said, "No doubt, I feel like I just woke up." "He's still sleeping, what happened?" "He slept on the ground, talking in his sleep." "Your desire is so sweet, too sweet." A voice echoed, "My slave is having a beautiful dream. It's the dream of eating your desire, as much as he likes after being accepted by you." Choi Yeonseung asked, "Constellation of dreams and greeds?" The constellation replied, "Yes, so you're the constellation that caused the recent disturbance in the abyss. I have always wanted to meet you." The constellation of dreams and greeds turned around with short hair, a pure white dress, looking like a child, turned to Choi Yeonseung. Choi Yeonseung replied, "But sorry, I'm not yet a constellation, I'm still far from it." The constellation stepped forward and said, "No. From the moment you decided to follow the path of a constellation, you already were one. The things you have done are all like a constellation." The constellation smiled and continued, "Can't you also use your survival power?" Choi Yeonseung looked at her and thought, "The master of nightmares, looking like a child?" Choi Yeonseung started reminiscing. The first time he stepped into the territory of the constellations. His mind was floating, "Am I still not ready? It's been 10,000 years since I wandered in the abyss. I have mastered supreme techniques and reached the highest level, now I have touched the peak of martial arts. Have I really become a constellation? I will maintain this peace, along with my enlightenment." This peace, the power of the internal force, woke him up. Holding his face, he said, "Why is this territory trying to invade my mind? Through these suggestive and tempting thoughts?" The constellation replied, "Dreams and desires are like that. Everyone who enters this room gets to satisfy all their desires, and feels at peace. If you are not a constellation, it's very hard to resist this temptation." "You did not awaken yourself?" Choi Yeonseung asked. "Self-awaken?" The constellation of dreams and greeds said, "You must be wondering what it is, but I won't explain it in detail." Choi Yeonseung immediately understood and said, "Do you have any requests from me?" Constellation smiled and said, "I'm always ready to explain to you, but only if you agree to form an alliance with us." Choi Yeonseung replied, "I never thought you would want to form an alliance. I always thought constellations were a selfish species." Constellation laughed and said, "Haha, yes, constellations are a selfish species, but they have no choice but to be selfish. Selfishness does not always lead to isolation and destruction. More than that, it can lead to the formation of alliances with others." Choi Yeonseung replied, "I understand what you're saying, so you think you would benefit from an alliance with me?" Constellation said, "Exactly, humans think we are gods or something similar, but the life of a constellation is not easy. If a constellation shows even a hint of weakness, stronger constellations will immediately attack them, and for weaker constellations to survive, they need a reliable alliance. And for some constellations, the concept of survival of the fittest is not the most promising. The disasters and destruction created by constellations who crave power only know destruction. With such suffering, there is no more temptation for nightmares to feed on." Choi Yeonseung asked, "Can't expanding territory solve the problem? Or you could take the nightmares to draw temptation from?" Constellation didn't let Choi Yeonseung finish the sentence. "So you mean we could have a farm of temptation and desire? That's just what you think because you were once human." Choi Yeonseung asked again, "What does that mean?" Constellation replied, "The invincible embodiment of training. Constellations cannot enjoy the luxurious freedom of humans. Just like being defeated and lazy is not allowed for a constellation like you. I cannot get involved in matters outside the territory of dreams and desires as I wish if I don't want to risk losing my survival power and becoming a weaker species. I must provide extremely high quality and complex desires for the nightmares, not simple desires born from fear or suppression, but desires created from world changes, human success desires, and I, the god of nightmares, cannot change the reality itself." Choi Yeonseung said, "You cannot live without humans. It feels almost like you're a constellation." Interrupted Choi Yeonseung, "Like a parasite, right?" Choi Yeonseung replied, "I was just saying it's quite strange. So basically you want an alliance with the weaker and less greedy constellations?" Constellation replied, "Exactly." Choi Yeonseung continued to wonder, "Aren't you showing too many weaknesses to me? What if I were greedy or aggressive?" Constellation laughed and said, "That could happen, but I think you are at least better than other constellations." Constellation of dreams and greeds didn't tell him, "I think their assessment of you is based on Choi Yeonseung's dreams and desires. If they showed it, they would risk making you an enemy." Choi Yeonseung scratched his head and said, "Are you being too careless? I don't think you should do that in the abyss." Constellation could replace the great desire from Choi Yeonseung but didn't feel any desire for conquest or thirst for power from it. All they saw was an infinite desire for training, in Choi Yeonseung's immense desire for practicing 1,000 heavenly punches a day. If I relax because I've mastered martial arts, it will lead to loss of muscle. No, loss of internal strength. I will use all the cooking ingredients in the abyss. I haven't finished my training schedule today, I will finish it right away. Constellation looked at Choi Yeonseung confused. Choi Yeonseung rubbed his chin and said, "It seems trustworthy, but I still want to ask you a few more things." Constellation replied, "Yes, ask me anything. I will answer to the best of my ability." Choi Yeonseung asked, "What do I need to do when forming an alliance? Am I responsible for anything?" Constellation stiffened upon hearing the question. Choi Yeonseung continued, "I have a lot to do, so maybe I can't help you much." Constellation laughed loudly and said, "I have never seen a constellation like you. You are worried about responsibility before thinking about the benefits of the alliance?" Constellation continued, "When other constellations don't attack the alliance, you won't have to do anything. There's no reason to attach unnecessary responsibilities to this, since all constellations won't do anything that doesn't benefit them. If you have things to do, just go and do as you wish. The war between constellations has been going on for generations. Wherever you are, you will still be able to help at any time." A bird landed on Constellation's hand and then flew away. Choi Yeonseung said, "All right. I accept this alliance." He shook hands with Constellation. Constellation laughed and said, "Good choice." Choi Yeonseung laughed thinking, "I'm just a newly formed constellation and there will certainly be dangerous constellations using their experience to threaten my position." Choi Yeonseung already had his own plan. He thought that forming an alliance would be better for him than being alone, and just maybe, but it might help him find a way back to Earth. The system informs you that you have joined the small constellation alliance. A constellation must be mindful of their words. If you don't keep your promises, it can negatively impact your survival strength. Choi Yeonseung wondered, "Hold on. Why is the alliance's name like this?" He stepped into the territory saying, "Exciting." He thought, "Are they serious? It's been a long time since I've had a social life." The constellation asked, "Or do you not like the name?" Choi Yeonseung awkwardly said, "Not at all, from the bottom of my heart. I think it's a good name." The constellation asked again, "Really?" Notification. Cat of lava and magma is waving its front paw as a greeting. Choi Yeonseung looked over. "I said I'd treat you better if you became my servant. You are foolish to join the small constellation alliance." Choi Yeonseung turned and saw the silhouette of a small cat, wondering. "A cat? Cat of lava and magma is waving its front paw as a greeting. I said I'd treat you better if you became my servant. You are foolish to join the small constellation alliance." Choi Yeonseung replied, "Now I remember. I think we've talked before. Are you also part of the small constellation alliance?" Cat welcomed the foolish constellation to the association once again. Choi Yeonseung said, "You are in front of me but still communicating telepathically." "Ah," Cat responded. "No, constellations usually don't leave their territory. This is a meeting of constellations, a form of virtual meeting." Choi Yeonseung nodded. "I understand, so in earthly terms, it's like a portrait meeting, so other constellations in the association must meet like this too, right?" Choi Yeonseung turned to ask about the other constellations in the association, but both the constellation and Cat ignored him. He realized, "Don't tell me. It's just the two of you?" Cat was angry, asking, "Do you have a problem with that? He threatened you that he wouldn't give you the gift they prepared for you." Choi Yeonseung quickly said, "No, I'm not really disappointed, anyway." "A gift? Cat heard you collected adamantium and orichalcum ore. He said if you wished, he could make something from it for you." Constellation of Dreams and Greeds said, "He's a famous blacksmith constellation in the abyss. He said if you join the association, he would make a weapon as a gift for you." Cat instinctively said that if you told the foolish constellation that, he would become arrogant. Choi Yeonseung said, "I didn't even think about getting a gift for joining the association. Maybe you're impressed, but right now, I don't have much orichalcum ore. I want to make a request after collecting more." Cat of Lava and Magma tilted its head in wonder. He said if Constellation of Dreams and Greeds doesn't give you a gift, Constellation said, "Oh, so. This offer actually happened easier than I thought. You accepted it before I even had a chance to talk about the gift, Kat sneered, calling the constellation foolish. Choi Yeonseung said, please remember that I can leave the association at any time. Kat tried to laugh it off by saying it was just a joke. Constellation said, as I mentioned before, constellations are usually very greedy and selfish. I have everything ready that you might find interesting. Once again, I welcome you to the Small Constellation Alliance. Having obtained the A-grade martial arts scroll, Absorb, you have obtained the orichalcum ore ingots. Choi Yeonseung was excited about the gift. Great, this technique is almost like energy absorption magic. Constellation replied, absorption technique originally comes from nightmares, but I believe it will be more useful when you use it. In fact, no nightmare truly holds this technique. Choi Yeonseung asked, why is that? Constellation replied, if one is not a perfect martial artist like you, they should especially give up learning magic. You have collected this much since you were human. How long did it take to gather this much? Constellation asked while looking at the stones. Choi Yeonseung replied, I think about 10,000 years, it's been a long time since I stopped counting time. Constellation asked, you seem to like your gift, don't you? Choi Yeonseung said, yes, thank you. I think now I can create the equipment I want. Cat of Lava and Magma excitedly asked you about the equipment you want him to make for you. He said with this much, he could make great swords or shields, and he is confident he can create any design you want. He proposed giving you a shield made of adamantium and a sword from orichalcum ore. Choi Yeonseung said, no, those aren't the items I want. He proposed giving you an axe or armor, but he was worried there wouldn't be enough adamantium to make a full set of armor. Choi Yeonseung said, cooking utensils, I want to make a cutting board and frying pan from adamantium, and spoons, forks, and plates from orichalcum ore. Cat of Lava and Magma asked for a serious proposal. Choi Yeonseung said, but I am serious. My dream has never changed. Since I first got a piece of adamantium in the abyss, I have wanted the sturdiest cooking utensils to cook with any ingredient in the abyss. Cat of Lava and Magma had no answer. He seems dead, Choi Yeonseung said, hello. Cat of Lava and Magma carefully returned to the conversation. He was muttering, eccentric, go to hell. Cat complained and began working. Choi Yeonseung looked and said, I feel like I did something wrong. Constellation said, a promise is a promise, so he's making it for you. So as promised, it's time for me to answer your question. You asked what awakening is, right? Choi Yeonseung replied, yes, I'm just a rookie who has just stepped onto the path of a constellation. After defeating Verago and reaching the transcendent rank, I saw this message from the universe. The resonance from the universe is getting stronger. The world is waiting for your affirmation. And Verago's last words, become a constellation, human, so I think it means. I am still a human, just a powerful martial artist, and I need something more to become a constellation. Constellation said, no. I said you are already a constellation, Choi Yeonseung asked, huh? Constellation continued, there is no such thing as a rookie or trainee constellation. A constellation is simply a constellation. Choi Yeonseung asked, wait, so what is awakening? Didn't you say I hadn't awakened yet? Constellation crossed his arms and replied, I just said you weren't enlightened about your existence. Until now, you still think of yourself as just a rookie. I understand where you come from, however, you are still a special existence, even to other constellations. Choi Yeonseung hurriedly said, what do you mean when you say I'm special? Is it because I'm a martial artist? Is there something wrong with not knowing how to use magic in the abyss? Constellation said, I can tell you've suppressed that thought for quite a while? Anyway, that's not what I meant. Constellation touched Choi Yeonseung's nose and said, what I'm trying to say is that it's very rare for a human to become a constellation. Choi Yeonseung asked, weren't you also a nightmare? Constellation replied, is that what you always thought of me? I became a constellation one day. Dreams and desires emanated from the nightmares, and I am a being born from the power of such dreams and desires. I am the physical form of the constellation of dreams and greeds, and this is the state of most other constellations. Even the Cardinal of Plague and Darkness and Cat of Lava and Magma, both appeared one day as a constellation. And I, existing as a constellation, have only been surprised and disappointed in you, who couldn't accept yourself as a constellation. Choi Yeonseung said, so awakening means. Constellation continued, nothing much, just accepting yourself as a constellation. Choi Yeonseung doubted, is it really that simple? Not quite, haven't you overcome the harshest trials on the path of a constellation? Maybe you're disappointed there are no harsher trials left on the path to becoming a constellation? Choi Yeonseung slowly closed his eyes and said, I am a constellation. Suddenly the resonance from the universe was active. The world has accepted your affirmation. The undefeated manifestation of training is using his power as a constellation. Constellation of Dreams and Greeds said, a sight worth watching. The birth of a new star, in the darkest depths of the abyss. Choi Yeonseung's appearance changed. His hair turned silver and grew longer, as if evolving into a true constellation. An angel was fighting a monster, he knew that. His attacks did not harm it. Suddenly the undefeated manifestation of training was watching you fight. The undefeated manifestation of training blessed you. The angel suddenly became excited, a blessing for me? Thank you very much, great constellation, I will surely repay this debt. Then, over here Choi Yeonseung said, oh so that's how it's done. It feels almost like I already knew how to do it, so it's a bit strange. I can bring a fairly strong blessing with a little bit of my presence, and I can also send them another message. Constellation of Dreams and Greeds said, I know you're very excited, but what are you doing with someone else's attendant? Choi Yeonseung said, sorry, I didn't pay attention. Constellation of Dreams and Greeds replied, we are allies, so it's fine, but if it were a constellation, it would be a problem, so please be careful with your actions. Choi Yeonseung thought, sigh, she's right, I really should think things through before acting. An attendant of a constellation is a very important aspect directly related to their existence and power, and exercising power or influence as someone else's attendant can be seen as a provocative act. Choi Yeonseung placed his hand on his forehead and thought, I should have realized this after a few minutes of thinking, and my other issues are the same. I didn't realize I had become a constellation, so I kept doing foolish things to become one. And even though everything had gone off course into the abyss, I still misunderstood it as a trial from the goddess. And I even thought that a mana storm was a convenient tool or another form of trial. Choi Yeonseung sat down on the ground and said, looking back at my actions, it's true that I kept seizing any opportunity and thought it was training, Constellation said, and remember, a constellation's vision is not just limited to right next to them. If you have an attendant, focus on their presence, Choi Yeonseung said, I don't even have an attendant. Suddenly, he saw the onyx snake family. Oh, they are doing quite well. Constellation said, you can use the presence power to expand your vision. The presence power you use can be restored, and a constellation's presence power can never exceed their capability, so saving it is useless. Choi Yeonseung thought, it's somewhat like mana in a game. Constellation continued, by using these powers, a constellation can use attendants to explore the abyss. Choi Yeonseung asked, a scouting team? Constellation, standing next to Kat, replied. And they use allied constellations to understand this boundless abyss, Choi Yeonseung realized, so alliances can also share vision. Constellation said, since we have become allies, I have shared my vision with you. Choi Yeonseung said, there is a place I can't see with shared vision. Constellation replied, you must be referring to the place where I keep the nightmares. You can hide places you don't want to be seen even if you share vision. Choi Yeonseung asked, why do you hide them? Constellation replied, feeling embarrassed, because it's shameful. Constellation looked at the nightmare angel Incubus sleeping on the ground and said, the reason I had Incubus greet you is because, among my attendants, he can control his desires quite well. Nightmares find it very difficult to resist temptation. Choi Yeonseung thought about Incubus's longing expression earlier and said, oh, I understand. Constellation asked, do you have any more questions? Choi Yeonseung replied, no, I think that's enough for now, thank you for sharing your knowledge. Constellation of Dreams and Greeds replied, I find it quite pleasant to see a constellation knowing how to express gratitude. She continued, there's one more thing. You are a constellation just beginning your journey, be cautious when conflicting with other constellations. Even if you are a skilled fighter, ultimately, the outcome of battles between constellations is determined by those with more attendance and higher presence power. Choi Yeonseung replied, I understand, I will remember. Beyond the sky, there is another sky existing outside this sky. Choi Yeonseung's position after countless years of training is just the starting point, and that is the abyss of the constellations. Choi Yeonseung asked, "Oh, right, do you know anything about Earth?" Constellation replied, "Earth? I've heard the name before, isn't it the planet outside the abyss? A planet with a large number of souls, so I've heard that outstanding constellations are waiting for the gates to open." Choi Yeonseung said, "I'm from there," and she responded in surprise, "So the gate between Earth and the abyss has already opened?" "It must be chaotic," Choi Yeonseung replied. "Luckily, it's not that bad. But thanks to your explanation, I understand now, constellations come to Earth, and instead of blindly conflicting with each other, they are waiting for the right moment. If they use presence power unnecessarily while fighting on Earth, another constellation could overwhelm the ones fighting and monopolize Earth. So instead of fighting, they look for ways to increase their followers," Constellation said. "You must be very fortunate. The constellations near you when the gate opened were relatively kind. If it were an evil or violent constellation, they would probably try to use force to make you submit without considering the potential risks." Choi Yeonseung wondered, "Are there risks that still exist?" She replied, "Obviously." Choi Yeonseung laughed and said, "I'm glad that's not the case." She crossed her arms and replied, "You would feel distressed handing over your home planet to an unclear constellation, wouldn't you? Also, if a constellation with Earth's soul as their attendant is our ally, it would be very beneficial." Suddenly, Choi Yeonseung raised his hand. He quickly cut his hair short again as before. Constellation watched and said, "The reason your hair grows quickly is that you have accepted yourself as a constellation. The change in your power is reflected in your outward appearance. Have you decided whether you will return to Earth at all costs? Or will you not forget your human side?" Choi Yeonseung replied, "No. If my hair gets too long, it will hinder my training." Constellation of Dreams and Greeds said, "If you plan to return to Earth, may I offer you some advice?" Choi Yeonseung replied, "Of course." She continued, "If a portal to Earth has indeed opened as you say, and the constellations nearby are watching Earth, then I think publicly revealing your constellation identity might not be a good idea. Because even benevolent constellations will be wary of you. If they are constellations who could compete for Earth, they are much stronger than us, and even if constellations are kind, they won't stay idle if they think they might lose the souls they have bound." Choi Yeonseung asked, "So you want me to hide that I am a constellation?" The constellation replied, "Yes, and also, don't use your presence power. They will be wary if they discover a constellation from Earth has returned. Blend in with ordinary humans, and quietly and steadily increase the number of your followers, so that they become souls who openly accept your blessings, and the constellations currently on Earth will discover they have lost it once it's too late." Choi Yeonseung folded his arms and thought. The constellation also knew and asked him, "Is something bothering you?" He replied, "Well, I never thought about becoming an actor or a celebrity." The constellation said, "That's not what I meant. Isn't it enough to become a hero by defeating monsters?" Choi Yeonseung laughed and clapped once, saying, "Oh right, a hunter." He thought, "Now that I remember, even famous hunters have fans just like celebrities. I forgot that because I only saw him as a hunter friend." He said, "By the way, there is a constellation on Earth who knows me." The constellation wondered, "Huh? Which constellation is that? Because if possible, recruiting them is also good, as increasing our alliance's strength is never harmful. Is that constellation trustworthy? How do you know about them?" Choi Yeonseung smiled and said, "This story is a bit long." Choi Yeonseung tried to explain the story of how he came to the abyss after meeting the virtuous goddess of the scales, as briefly as possible. Due to the reputation of the virtuous goddess of the scales and his own reputation, Constellation of Dreams and Greeds said it was indeed a brainless story. Choi Yeonseung's embellishments were ineffective. The constellation said, "However, I have heard of that constellation before." Choi Yeonseung said, "Even in the abyss, the ability to see the future is not common, right? Although she seems weak, perhaps she has a plan." The constellation continued, "I've heard that she is a constellation who constantly turns herself into a joke by often misinterpreting her own prophecies." Choi Yeonseung kicked the ground and said, "Well, it must be very difficult to predict the future accurately." She replied, "Isn't it an issue of intelligence if you can see the future but can't use it? I really don't understand. Does accepting someone like that help our alliance?" Cat of lava and magma said that a beggar cannot demand glutinous rice cake. Choi Yeonseung said, the cat is right. Considering that she tries to prevent evil constellations, she must be upright and seems likely to cooperate with other constellations. Isn't that enough to become part of the alliance? The constellation said. But she seems too foolish. Cat of lava and magma said that if she shares her prophecies, we can help her interpret them. The constellation turned and said, then, invincible training master, invite her to join the alliance when you return to Earth. Choi Yeonseung smiled and replied, I'm sure she will be useful, though I worry about how she will react to the fact that I have become a constellation. I need to find a way to contact her. Do you two know where she might be? The constellation replied, I've only heard her name. Cat of lava and magma said, how could it know the location of such a small constellation? Choi Yeonseung had awakened as a constellation and joined a powerful alliance, but returning to Earth still showed no progress. Choi Yeonseung said, I guess I'll have to find her myself. The constellation replied, the virtuous goddess of the scales will be an excellent clue because the more creatures you find who know of her, the closer you are to Earth. Choi Yeonseung increasingly worried whether he would be able to return to Earth in time. Leaving Constellation of Dreams and Greeds. The angel Incubus immediately flew to find Choi Yeonseung, saying, Sir Constellation, I heard that you are looking for me. I'm happy to guide you through the commander's territory. He asked, but aren't you planning to return to Earth immediately? Choi Yeonseung replied, well, Incubus, it's because I still have important matters here. Cat of lava and magma is working on my equipment, and I need to stay here until it's completed. Incubus said, I understand, they are precious minerals you have spent a lot of time gathering, it's wonderful. I'm sure if the famous Constellation Cat blacksmith makes it, it will be legendary equipment suitable for you, Sir Constellation. Cat of lava and magma was moved to tears. Choi Yeonseung looked up proudly and said, of course, they will be the perfect equipment I've longed for. Incubus smiled and said, that's wonderful, Sir Constellation. He said, Sir Constellation, should I guide you now? This domain has many wonderful things to see. Choi Yeonseung said, oh actually, I've been thinking of a place. I heard Constellation of Dreams and Greeds mention something called a shining beacon here. Incubus replied, yes, that is a training ground where we learn to control our desires. Choi Yeonseung smiled and said, if I have to wait here, then I might as well practice. Incubus smiled and said, you are indeed a master of practice. Incubus led Choi Yeonseung to the location, opened the door, and said, I heard that many nightmares used to use this place, but it has been forbidden since the commander was born. Choi Yeonseung reflexively wondered why. He said, because it is extremely dangerous. I heard that many nightmares went mad when participating in this training. Choi Yeonseung approached the well, which was the enlightenment well, a simple training, just needing to drink water from the well. However, if it were only that, it wouldn't have been sealed by Constellation. The stronger the desire of the person drinking from the well, the heavier the water becomes. You can meditate to cleanse the desire, but the well's water will not let go of the participant. Choi Yeonseung gritted his teeth and pulled water from the well. The well emitted a voice, if you let go, you can return to Earth. Don't you want to go back to your old training place, your precious weights? Don't you remember the spicy ramen with lots of chili powder? Do you not know what happened in the next volume of the fantasy novel you once read? Has it ended yet? A movie with superheroes and Batman, it can't be boring, aren't you curious? Suddenly, a hand touched Choi Yeonseung's hand. It had been a long time. When we parted ways, it might have been a bit ugly, but it's not like our feelings have cooled and we hate each other, right? We could get back together. As long as you let go of this rope. It was the illusion of Choi Yeonseung's ex-lover. Over here, Constellation of Dreams and Greeds told Cat of Lava and Magma, it won't be easy, even though he is a master of practice. The well increases a person's desire exponentially, and the bucket will be much heavier. Cat of Lava and Magma wondered if the master of practice would be okay. Constellation replied, constellations are beings far superior to nightmares, at least he won't go mad. I'm very curious about what the master of practice is experiencing, it must be something wonderful. Cat of Lava and Magma pointed out something and told you to look. Incubus looked at Choi Yeonseung and called out, Master Constellation. He is still struggling to pull the bucket of water. Standing perpendicular to the well, he was trying to lift it with both hands and feet. Constellation looked on in surprise. Impossible. He is working out, performing muscle-building exercises. He is lifting the bucket up and down, counting 1, 2, 3, 4 continuously. Constellation continued, using the weight of desire to exercise like that, in the training ground to cleanse desire, mixing obsession with such training. No wonder he became a constellation. Choi Yeonseung tried to do 5 more reps. Cat of Lava and Magma muttered something that this was a bit too much. The task of pulling the bucket of water is proportional to the participant's desire. The person pulling the bucket in this well will experience illusions that stimulate their desire, and when the illusion occurs, the water becomes heavier accordingly. It is said that many nightmares have gone mad after this training. Incubus stood there asking, Master Constellation, is there a problem?